Did we do anything wrong? Was there any misinformation in that interview at all?
Yeah. I think something that we have to like set the record straight about is that flag is of the TPLF party, which stands for the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. And basically, the war that she talked about, the war in Somalia, the war in Eritrea, the chaos that has been just sowed in Ethiopia for these last 30 years is a result of TPLF. And that flag represents that front. And so basically, the conflict today is a result of what they have done. So when they came on and you mentioned misinformation, we should go further and say disinformation. Because what they did is you have activists from TPLF actively telling people online, let's go out there and lie so that we can get a humanitarian intervention in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, in the name of the Tigrayan people. This is not for the Tigrayan people. This is to save TPLF, which has terrorized the region, which is literally a terrorist group. And so, and by the way, they're documented as a terrorist group by a database, the Global Terrorism Database, which is financed by the Homeland Security Department here in America. So, truly a terrorist group. And the thing is that they've worked to maintain the U.S. ruling class interest in that part of the world, which has destroyed Africa, to be honest with you. Wiped Libya off the map, destroyed Somalia. You can go down the list, country after country. The things that they have done have just, been horrible. So they found a partner in the region named TPLF that was willing to sell itself because they're a minority regime. So when I say minority regime, 6% of the people are Tigrayan. Many ethnic groups in Ethiopia, 80 of them, they're one of them. They only represent 6%. But TPLF is even less than 6%. I mean, they represent an elite bourgeois sort of group that has robbed the people blind. So I'm talking, they've stolen 2.6 billion a year from the Ethiopian people, while their own people in Tigray we're living on food aid. 1.5 million people depend on food aid. So my point is that TPLF has been a nightmare for the region. They started this conflict. We can get into the details and all that stuff, but they've been pushing all this propaganda because they lost the war in 3 weeks. They are against the people of Ethiopia, the people of Eritrea, and for fear of talking on too long, I'm going to leave it at that because really this is what needs to be clarified.
No, take the time to explain. I need to know. So
I just want to say the people.
What country are we banned from?
Time.
Are we banned from anywhere for holding that flag up?
No. This is misinformation this is what the misinformation that people maybe they was complaining.
On November 3rd, they attacked the National Defense Force of Ethiopia, which is located in the northern part of Tigray, and in the hopes of returning to power. So remember, they were in power for 27 years, controlling Ethiopia, dominating the economy, everything, and stolen and embezzled millions and millions of dollars, really, because we're seeing the money floating around in D.C., where I'm from, and all the lobbyists are being paid by them to create all this news on a daily basis about how they're being victimized when they are actually the ones who have abused Ethiopia and the rest of the Horn Africa with the power and money that they've embezzled for the last 27 years. So basically, now the fight is not really about people to people. It's about dictators wanting to come back after 27 years, after the people have thrown them out. And it's a sad situation because news articles and Western media is putting it like there is, genocide and there is rape and there's this going on and this, and Africans are killing each other and raping each other. But that's not what it is. What we really need to understand and stand up
just talk a little closer to the mic so we can hear
is really understand and stand up for is it's dictators who are being supported by the Western powers to basically loot their own countries. And this is like Black Lives Matters Africa, because why are, dictators who are like thugs like this, who steal money, who dictate, who kill, murder their own people to stay in power, being supported by big, Western world countries? Why are they? Because they become the running dog for their errands because the people don't like them.
Why is it not in the press as much? Because we don't see anybody talking about it, or nor do we see it, hear it.
So, actually, for us who follow this stuff regularly, there's an enormous amount of news coming out every day, more than we're typically accustomed to since November. And a lot of the news is just straight disinformation. In fact, it's a joke. I mean, it's a serious matter, but it comes down to a joke because they're saying there are massacres, right? And then, for instance, we'll have like the massacre that took place in Aksum, a historic city in Tigray. On November 29th, they said that there was this massacre of 750 people. Ever since then, or the thing that they don't tell you is that the very next day, they had a huge festival that's broadcast live on national TV, where they're saying everything is great and all is well. But if you read the reports on what came out, then they said that there was the stench of death in the air, that there was mass bodies were being awaiting to be put into mass graves. So how do you have the very next day this type of thing? I mean, I can go down the list. There's so many different things like this. And you have on CNN journalist Nima Al-Bagher, who right now is leading an EU U.S. discussion on this issue to bring R2P to Eritrea, which is responsibility to protect and basically war on Eritrea and Ethiopia. She says she has the CNN video where they're testifying what actually happened, and there's this villager on camera. Well, what she doesn't know, actually she does, but she ignores, is that there was the full length of that video. If you look, the villager is actually being coached and saying, some number for how many people are killed. And then the guy's like, no, say some other number. And then the guy like changes the number, and it's just like right in front of your face. It's so blatant. And we approached Nima Al-Bagher, and she just ignores this. CNN ignores this. And this is the mainstream narrative because they want to ramp up a war against African people. If you are about Pan-Africanism, if you believe in black people worldwide should be standing up and have dignity, self-respect, national sovereignty, if you want them to come together in an alliance that actually, where we can be proud as African peoples worldwide, you have to stand with Eritrea. You have to stand with the peoples in the Horn of Africa. You have to stand with Ethiopia and Somalia as well, too. Somalia is rebuilding itself again.
The bottom line is we have a terrorist group who used to be a ruler for 27 years. They are trying to get any type of intervention so that they can come back in power. This is how bad the game is.
Wow.
And we Africans, African Americans, black people need to wake up, because every time we see a news about an African country and how horrible they are to each other, that means it's telling you there is something of interest there.
Again, I just want to emphasize, they want to take these countries to war because they represent resistance on the African continent. And this is really the last bastion of resistance there. And we all have to stand up, and there has to be a sense of urgency. We have to be very cognizant of the fact that when you're talking to somebody here and they say, hey, get behind this genocide that's going on, you have to understand that it's not, you have to be very critical. You have to have a very critical eye when you receive this information. And I know there's some people who go out, I'm not going to mention names, but certain celebrities who have caught on to some things and then kind of pulled back afterwards, feeling a little bit like, oh my God, like who was I talking to? Because tribalism is a very serious problem in Africa. And it is a sickness that exists in Ethiopia because of almost 3 decades of a system called ethnic federalism.
What's that?
So basically, if you could just imagine in California, if we were to apply it in America, imagine you said that California is Asia land, Texas is Mexico land, Mississippi is black land, Nebraska is white land or something like that. So you just go down the list. Obviously, that's going to lead to tensions. What are you going to do? You're going to do 3 things. You're going to argue over borders and territories. You're going to fight over resources. Yeah. And then you're also going to ethnically cleanse to purify your little area.
The government will fund one. I'm sure the government will fund one more than the other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they did this to enrich the Tigray region, but they didn't even give that money to the average Tigrayan peasant. Like I said, 1.5 million people were on food aid, even though they stole 30 billion over a 10-year period. God knows how much throughout their entire reign. Is
there anything Americans or people outside of Eritrea can do to help, or outside of Ethiopia can do to help?
Yeah, what helps the situation and not hurts it?
I think, people need to just, be aware of it.
The focus is right now is there's a war that's being pushed for a potentially NATO war. The same thing that happened in Libya. I mean, we're talking about slave markets, open slave markets in Libya. How did this happen? This is the work of the United States. This is the work of the EU. They took that country to war, destroyed that country, and that was one of the most developed countries in Africa. And so now you're looking at a similar situation where you have the last bastion of resistance could be wiped off the map, and that should strike fear in everyone. Why? Because if you lose that, where's the resistance going to come from? Like, where is the homeland for Black people, the African people worldwide? We need to have something where a pivot, where we have something where we can say we have this, we own this, we control this. And if we lose that, what do we have?